This is Set Him Free, Chapter 19. Roman's shadow cast upon the walls of the castle with the sunrise. The brick was illuminated a soft orange, and it was cool beneath the pads of his fingers as he climbed higher. Those who leaned towards logical thought may have opted to simply enter through the front, but Roman wasn't quite ready to be swarmed with questions of those who followed him. Besides, scaling a real-life tower was a dream come true. He made quick work of the stone wall, reaching the window to his room within mere minutes. It helped that, in actuality, the prince's room wasn't very far from ground level. His fingers gripped the edge of the windowsill, and with a sharp breath, he was able to pull himself up. Much to his luck, the window was unlocked, allowing him to twist the latch and slip inside. Cream curtains fluttered in his face as he stepped into his bedroom. It was undisturbed. Everything was in the place he'd left it, from the items occupying his shelves to the clothes he had haphazardly thrown on the floor before his departure. The only difference was the two people sitting on the edge of his bed. Duplicate pieces of parchment lay in their hands, and they observed them in sorrowful silence. Roman held back the tears that stung his eyes as he moved forward. Logan? Patton? Their heads shot up in tandem, equally shocked expressions occupying their features. Roman offered a shaky smile, holding his arms wide. I'm home. A beat of silence passed, frozen in realization. Roman simply beamed. It was all he could do to keep from bursting into tears as Patton rushed forward and hurled himself into the prince's arms, nearly knocking him over. Roman laughed, lifting the messenger from the floor and spinning him in circles while holding him close. If hugs could heal the pain they had all gone through, he would hold on to Patton forever. Logan approached nearly as quickly as Patton, but waited until the messenger had been placed safely back onto the floor before greeting the prince. He opened his mouth to speak, though no words emerged. His eyes grew shiny, and he stood gaping until Roman swept him into his arms. He couldn't see his face, but the shaking of his shoulders revealed emotions Logan rarely dared to release. Roman was sure that the advisor was not partial to human contact, and moved to release him after a few moments, but found that Logan was still gripping tightly to the back of his shirt. Beaming, Roman pulled the advisor in closer, allowing him to bury his head into the prince's shoulder. It's all right, Lo, he said, tracing circles onto the advisor's back as he felt tears stain his sleeve. I'm back. And thank goodness for that, Patton smiled, placing a hand on Roman's shoulder. We were so worried. Logan raised his head at this, appearing slightly more composed, though his glasses were still fogged from crying. Are you all right? Have you been hurt? He stepped back, searching for invisible wounds. I'm fine, Roman insisted. Neither took that for an answer, knowing the prince would opt to save his pride before admitting to any injuries. Roman allowed them to check, figuring a couple extra bandages wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Carefully, Patton grasped his hands, gasping at the red nicks on his palms, still partially healing. He shot Roman a concerned look, silently asking for an explanation. It's all right, Patton, Roman assured him. There was just a mishap when I tried to escape the first time. The first time? Logan's eyes widened, seeming to ask 1,000 questions within a single glance. Roman chuckled, moving to sit down as Patton went to fetch clean bandages. It's a long story. You may want to sit down. Logan obliged, the messenger following close behind with a small medkit. And so, as the three took up residence on the floor, Roman recounted his entire story. He described the day of his capture, the bustling crowds of the streets, and the planted crime that had led to his being taken. He described the empty room that he called home during the long days, and the time he would spend alone, wishing with everything to find a way out. He explained his first attempt at escape, and the painful price that followed it. Patton and Logan listened with wide eyes as he spoke, the messenger softly gasping at points, while Logan silently took everything in, giving the occasional nod. Patton began to fret when Roman described the ankle he had sprained while fleeing into the forest, but the prince quickly reassured him that the injury had healed. Logan gave him a skeptical glance that implied they would revisit the subject later, but allowed Roman to continue as he spoke of his final days in the cottage. His escape served as the climax of his story, reaching just up to the point where he climbed through the tower window. He finished with a sigh. Going through each day again felt different. Roman hadn't realized the toll it had taken on him until he revisited those dark days. The letter was right, Logan muttered, catching the parchment with the corner of his eye. What? We received 2 letters in your absence. Twin pieces of parchment lay in the advisor's hands, and he offered them to Roman. The first stated you had run away. It told us that you didn't feel needed and not to come looking for you. Oh. Roman's shoulders dropped, the corners of his mouth turning down slightly. You know I would never do that, right? I promise I was not the author of such lies. Of course not. That's why Logan was immediately skeptical, Patton assured him. It wasn't long before we got a second letter telling us the truth. The truth? Logan motioned to the second scrap of paper. This arrived days ago, though we are unsure of the source. Roman's eyes skimmed over the page, growing wide as they took in the writing. There was only one person who could have written that. Logan cleared his throat. These were our only leads, though thank the heavens that you found your way back on your own. We were so afraid we'd never find you, Patton mumbled. I'm just so glad you're home. Logan nodded. You seem to return with perfect timing. This morning a letter was retrieved stating the location of those who are responsible. Several guards left this morning to retrieve them. A weight lifted from the prince's shoulders. It seems justice would be served after all, and he was glad for it. Whatever Janice had been planning was too dangerous to overlook. A knock sounded from the door, jolting the 3 from their conversation. Roman, on instinct, stood to go answer it, despite Patton and Logan's panicked protests. Upon opening the door, he came face to face with a member of the royal guard, who went ghostly white as he caught sight of Roman. Prince Averil, he stammered, stunned. You're back? Yes, I arrived just this morning, Roman answered. A wonderful day, isn't it? It's nice to get to see the full sun after so long. Logan face-palmed. We must get you to the Queen at once. Right. His mother had to still be in the dark of his arrival. Roman was not going to hear the end of it once they reached that throne room, but the thought of seeing his mother again overpowered any scolding he would receive. The guard had already begun moving, glancing back expectantly at Roman, who began to follow. He recalled the past of the castle to his memory, still recently unacquainted with such a large space. Soon, they had reached the tall white doors of the throne room. The guard pulled the doors open a crack, and Roman moved to follow, though he was halted before he could step inside. Wait here, he said. I believe it may be wise to inform Her Majesty of your entrance, so she is not overly shocked. Roman nodded, and leaned to listen against the towering doors as the guard slipped inside. There was a muffled conversation before a loud, "What?" emerged from the murmur. The prince took this as his invite to enter, and was met with several gasping faces, his mother standing at the center of the room. Tears sparkled in her eyes. Roman, she whispered, slowly stepping forward as if he were a mirage that could disappear at any moment. "Hello, Mother," Roman smiled, and the queen immediately broke into sobs. She rushed forward, pulling the prince into a bone-crushing hug that left Roman gasping for air. With trembling fingers, she stepped back to tilt his chin up, checking for any signs of injury, just as Logan had done. "I can't believe it," she muttered, still frantically looking for signs of harm. "You're here. You're really here." "I am." Elena hugged Roman again, though as she did so, everything felt constricted. A smile was plastered on the prince's face as his mother held him tight. Too tight, he thought, as he felt his lungs gasping for air. At last, she released him, her mascara dripping in thin black trails as she spoke. "How dare you worry me so much, Roman? I was so scared something bad had happened to you. I was scared it was your father all over again." "I'm sorry," he muttered, his smile faltering slightly. "I'm all right, though, and I'm here to stay." The queen smiled. "As you should be. Gosh, Roman, why did you leave me so afraid? Don't ever make me go through that again." "I didn't have a choice." "Shh." The queen held up a finger, and Roman's mouth clamped shut. "You can tell me all about it later. Right now, I must attend to important business." The prince nodded, and Elena shifted to look at the guard who had been awkwardly standing for the whole reunion. "You," she stated coldly, the softness in her voice disappearing almost instantly. "State your business here." "Oh, I was just about to tell you before I discovered the prince." "Speak, man. I don't need your explanation." "Yes, sorry." He cleared his throat. "It's about Roman's captors. We have retrieved who is responsible." Roman sighed in relief, a weight lifting from his shoulders. They had found them. The kingdom was no longer in danger, and neither was Virgil. His mind drifted back to their agreement to meet. It had to only be a short time before noon. He snapped back to reality at the sound of his mother's voice, sharp and commanding as she ordered, "Bring him in." Roman prepared himself for the sight of a deep red mark and a sharp scowl as the throne room doors were opened. He braced himself to hear the deep hiss of a man filled with fabrications as the shifting sound of iron shackles filled the room. And with the expectant gaze of his mother, he steeled himself to meet those yellow-green eyes, the ones that pierced into his soul and demanded answers he did not have. What he saw was so much worse. A black cloak, adorned with telltale purple patches and thread, dark bangs cascading down his forehead, partly covering the tear on his face, fingers shaking as he was pushed forward by a guard, crying out as he stumbled to the ground. Roman moved forward before he could stop himself. "Virgil!" The thief glanced up, and his eyes widened. He started, but was cut off with a sharp kick to his side. He doubled over, wincing at what was likely to turn into a new bruise. "You may not speak unless given permission," the guard snapped, and Roman recognized him as Elric, a hot-headed sort of a man that Roman wished deeply to exile at that moment. What could he do, though? They were all just following the orders of Queen Elena, and who wouldn't? Not when the accused criminal fell before them. Not when they were unaware of the truth. Elena strode forward, a cold breeze sending a shiver down Roman's spine as she marched past. The prince caught Virgil flinching as she approached, and honestly, he couldn't blame him. There was no end to her wrath, not when her son had been taken from her. With an iron grip, she tipped Virgil's chin up so he was forced to look her in the eyes. "Bold of you to show your face here after all you've done." "I didn't have the choice," Virgil responded, and yelped as the heel of a boot connected with his shoulder. He frowned at the guard behind him, whose hand went to the hilt of his sword in warning. "That's enough, Elric," Roman cautioned, trying to conceal the rising panic in his veins. He hoped his mother couldn't see the fear in his eyes. If he could just keep up an act for long enough, he could find time to reason with her. "You will not harm him when he has currently done nothing of concern." "But, Prince, leave him alone." Roman stepped forward, venom suddenly replacing the dread that had filled his brain. Elric's fingers closed a little tighter around his sword, though he froze at the sound of the Queen's voice. "You will do as he says, Elric," Elena cut in, though shot Roman a look of disapproval. The prince didn't flinch, ignoring her gaze as Elric stood down and the Queen continued. "This is a product of your crimes," she stated. "You have hurt my son, taking him away from me and shattering his mind with your wickedness." "You don't understand. I didn't—" "Silence!" the Queen barked, and Roman felt sick to his stomach. "It seems that stealing spare parts wasn't good enough for you, so you decided to rob this city of its own prince like the wretched thief you are." "Mother, not now, Roman." The prince drew back at the sharpness of her voice. He couldn't stand to see Virgil enduring this, not when he wasn't the true villain. Still, Elena continued on. "For taking something so dear to me, you will suffer greatly. I will make you regret everything you have done, and you will be a fool to wish for so much as an inkling of understanding." She gestured to the sentries guarding the door. "Confiscate his cloak. He may be hiding weapons beneath it." Roman watched Virgil's eyes grow wide, a panicked look emerging in his eyes. That cloak was his everything, something he had only seen the thief without once. As the sentries approached, Virgil began to struggle, now jumping back from their grasp. "Wait!" he called as one sentry caught hold of the front clasp. "Don't take it, please. It's the last thing I have." "That is the price you must pay." The sentry managed to remove the cloak from Virgil's shoulders, placing it in the Queen's hand. Her fingers coiled around the fabric tightly, and Roman caught a smirk emerging on her lips. She was enjoying this, he realized. She wanted to watch Virgil suffer. The thief now hung his head, his bangs hiding the pain that surely consumed his features. "Ignore her," Roman wished to shout. "Keep going just a little longer." He hated how the whole kingdom savored such a sight, hated the fact that he too had done so once upon a time. Janice had been right after all. The royals were nothing but crooked rulers in search of power. Satisfied with her performance, Elena flicked her wrist, signaling the guards. "Take him away." Roman watched in horror as the guards obeyed, yanking Virgil to his feet and shoving him out the door. Once the doors had closed, he felt the weight of his mother's hand on his shoulder. There was a silent command that came from her touch, one that stated that discussion would not be brought up again. But the prince knew that was anything but true. He was going to bring it up again. He was going to scream it into his mother's face until she listened, because no matter what, Virgil was not going to remain in the dungeons if he had anything to say about it. This has been Chapter 19 of Set Him Free. Thank you so very much for listening, and I will see you next time for Chapter 20.